Hi, welcome to Gone Fishing. I'm TJ Schwanke. Today we're out in western Alberta in the beautiful foothills of the Rocky Mountains, and I'm going to be fishing with tournament partner Russ Brotherton. We're heading to the Upper Bow River, and we're going to be fishing for brown trout and Rocky Mountain whitefish. Well, this area isn't as famous as the stretch below Calgary. It holds good numbers of fish, and there's some incredible scenery. Stay with us. It's going to be a lot of fun. I got just a little one here, Russ.
Yeah.
We're just below the CD Dam here in the Bow River, and you actually fish up here a fair bit, don't you, Russ?
I fish up here a few times a year. It seems later on, like in the fall now, that you get a lot of these little brown trout. The odd big brown trout will move right up in here and feed, and they do a little bit of spawning this time of the year later on.
There's a little brown trout right there. Now the Bow River is pretty famous for its brown trout, and there sure are a lot bigger fish in here than that. I don't know, we just like to get up here in the upper bow where the fish are smaller, but they're a lot more plentiful. There's very little competition up here. It seems no one fishes up here. Everyone kind of concentrates on that famous stretch of the bow below Calgary where the big browns do live, but it's kind of nice to get up here and just have some fun. It's late September and the weather's never like this in Alberta in late September. It's been 30 degrees the last few days, and you can see there's insects flying everywhere. The activity's pretty good in the mornings and the evenings on the river. It seems to slow down a little bit in the day when the sun gets up, but we're having a lot of fun here today, and that's just what we're out here for. Well, they're starting to rise now, Russ.
Are they?
Yeah, there's just 3 of them come up here.
Maybe once the sun comes up a little more.
Oh, he missed it. He struck at it too. He was following and he just whacked.
Fish on.
That one?
Oh, lost him.
Lost him. He sure was jumping there, wasn't he?
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. Brown trout aren't actually native to Alberta, or North America for that matter. The brown trout in Alberta, they figure, came from Scotland, and they're the Loch Levin variety. There's also a lot of brown trout in Sweden and places like that.
It's interesting you say that, TJ, because they say there's the story going into the brown trout, getting into the Bow River, was back in 1925. Banff used to have a hatchery, and they were moving fish from the hatchery somewhere to eastern Alberta, and the truck broke down, and instead of letting all the fish just die, the guy who was driving the truck, I guess, he dumped all these brown trout right into the Bow River.
It's kind of funny how that happened. I mean, the Bow River is probably the most famous brown trout fishery in the world now, and they did get introduced here by accident. I mean, undoubtedly they would have got introduced here eventually. The problem with brown trout is they're highly competitive, and they take up the best spots in a stream, and they've actually displaced a lot of the native fish. So you do pay a price. I mean, while they're a lot of fun to catch, you know, they have displaced a lot of the other trout. Now you notice that Russ and I are staying down really low here. There's a lot of trout out in this pool in front of us. You can see them, they're really rising. Brown trout are really spooky. So what you want to do is keep down really low when you're near shore like this. We're just kind of flipping out there and casting back, and hopefully they don't catch our profile and spook away.
There's one.
Yep. Oh, lost them again. Well, as you can see, we got a lot of fish following our hooks, and they're kind of interesting.
Okay.
Oh, you got one, Russ?
There's a fish.
Oh, right out of the water.
Little jumper, rolling.
It's kind of neat. They'll just get in there behind it and follow it. And a lot of times, if you just leave it sit, they'll come up and grab it. But other times, you have to really speed it up and try to take it away from them. Now, how'd you get that one?
I got this one with a little hot shot lure. It's brown and pink. Just letting it sit on surface.
Just letting it sit there. Now, you always hear people twitching crankbaits and things for bass, but for trout, it's really exciting. That's a nice brown right there. To the upper bow, that's a nice sized fish. Look at the spots on those, they're just beautiful. Maybe one of the prettiest fish in the river, I think.
Yeah, he'll be bigger one day.
Yeah.
There you go.
The reason the fish don't get as big in the upper bow here is it's a lot more sterile system. The fish below Calgary, they're in a very rich environment there. There's a lot of effluent dumped in from the city of Calgary, and there's a lot of weed growth, a lot of insect growth, and so on up the food chain. And that's why the fish grow so big there. This water is relatively sterile, but it's also very clean, and it's a really pristine place to come fish.
Yeah. As well, it's a lot of fun to see them fish take these little crankbaits off the surface. That's what we're trying to do here. Just get them just up on the surface and twitch them, and then fish come up, and just to watch them take it off the surface like that is such a lot of fun.
This is a pretty popular technique with bass fishermen. It's actually called walking the dog, and you're just kind of bringing a lure across the top using floating crankbaits like Thunderstick Juniors and little Rapalas and things like that. Like Russ said, we're just slowly switching them across, and a lot of times you'll have 3 or 4 fish following, and it's just convincing one of them to bite. Well, it seems like the trout have kind of shut off on our crankbaits. There's a lot of very, very small insects hatching. A lot of times trout will get so intense on feeding on one kind of food supply, whatever's abundant, and that's what is abundant right now, that they'll shut off of all other things. So I'm just going to switch to some bait here and maybe give that a little try. You have to be really careful on the Bow River. There's a lot of areas where bait is banned. This is one of the areas where it isn't, but just make sure to read your regulations. So I'm going to give this a try, see what happens. Boy, they got a lot of power.
They do.
Unreal. I just put on a little bit of Berkeley power bait, chartreuse. We seem to have really good luck with chartreuse with our crankbaits, but they seem to have shut off of those. And I just put this on a plain hook, no weight, no nothing.
That's what I was just trying over there. I was trying a wire worm, and whitefish would follow it right up. That's another little brown trout.
Yeah, oh man, he's peeling drag. Now I'm just using a little ultralight outfit here. It's only got 2-pound test line on it, so you can't horse these fish at all. And these fish are just staging up to this part of the river to spawn, and a lot of times man-made obstructions like dams will stop them. And they'll come up here and they'll actually dig a nest, just like most trout will. And they spawn in the fall, where most fish will spawn in the spring. These fish spawn in the fall. Ooh, there's a nice little fish.
Yeah, a lot of times what you'll find with the brown trout too is they'll mate or crossbreed with your brook trout. What you get is you get a strain of trout called a tagger trout. It's just a cross between a brown and a brook. It's not a real common occurrence that you get crossbreeding in nature, but brown trout and the little brook trouts, they'll do her sometimes.
There, he had a little fly in his mouth too. Somebody broke him off. Look at that. It's like a little mayfly nymph. Somebody was fly fishing, caught him. So, there's a pretty typical brown for the upper bow here, though. They're just a beautiful, beautiful fish, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Just covered with little brown spots.
I'm going to get him back. Well, maybe we'll have to try some of this bait. They seem to have shut off. This bug activity, I think, has really shut them off of our crankbaits, but just by using a natural presentation. I know trout love Berkeley power bait, and it'd be a great place to bring the kids if you ever want to come up. Like I say, we're just west of Cochrane. It's just off the 1A highway, and it's called CV Dam. It's a Trans-Alta Power Dam. And I don't know, what is it from Cochrane? About 20 minutes out here, Russ?
Yeah, it's about 60, 65 kilometers.
So when you're fishing below dams, you got to be careful though. You may want to phone Trans-Alta before you come out here and make sure they're not going to spill a bunch of water. And I know both you and I've been out here, and the water's been, way up these banks.
Oh yeah, right up, there's a rock ledge just up here, and the water's way up here sometimes.
So you want to be really careful when you come out to these places that, somebody's not going to open the dam on you. So you just want to check, and Trans-Alta is happy to give you that information. That was a nice trout.
Yeah, it was.
It's just right here, Russ. Just a billion whitefish right here.
Is there right down in here?
Right, this is all whitefish, all these you can see. Oh, there's another one, Russ.
Another fish on the power bait, eh?
Yeah. Now, brown trout are one of the toughest, if not the toughest, freshwater fish in Alberta to catch. They're really smart fish.
We just had a hit right down in here.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. A lot of times when you take children out, I take my daughters out sometimes fishing on the bow for brown trout. Pretty tough to catch. Like most people, they're using flies, dry flies and stuff. Try and teach a child that's like 8 to 15 years old how to fly fish. A lot of times it's pretty tough. So these different ways of using hardware is what we call it. You know, your little crankbaits and artificial stuff is a lot times easier for children to master.
That's true, and a lot of the ways you can catch them on hardware, like we were catching them on crankbaits, and now we're just catching them on bait here. But I know kids love to go fishing, and they don't really care how big the fish are they catch. You know, and if you can bring your kid out and catch fish like this all day long, I mean, they're going to have a riot. I know, I'm having fun.
Oh yeah. These power nuggets that we're using, they resemble a marshmallow almost. They don't resemble anything natural that these fish should be feeding on. But what it is with the power nuggets is they're very high in scent and they smell good to these fish. Trout and salmon, they both have a very acute olfactory system, which is their sense of smell. One thing that's a real turn-off with fish is we have in our skin a chemical known as L-serine. And L-serine is just a chemical makeup in your skin. These fish, trout and salmon, they can smell one drop of that in 50,000 gallons of water.
It's kind of interesting. We always wash our hands before we fish to get rid of that L-serine. It's just an amino acid. But one thing I always find interesting is we always know women outfish us when we're out fishing. That always happens, right?
Oh yeah.
Reason for that is women have less L-serine on their hands. And when fish are negative, oh, I had them too. When fish are a little turned off like these ones are, they're relying very, very heavily on their sense of smell, and that's why we're playing to it. So you want to get rid of that L-serine on your hands. Now, fish have the ability to process each molecule. They inhale water through their nostrils, and the brain can process each molecule to decide what that smell is. And these Berkeley Power Nuggets have been flavored to really attract trout. Now, I'm often asked when I'm doing seminars why WD-40 works so well on especially salmon. A lot of the guys on the West Coast will spray WD-40 on their lures and actually catch more fish. And I know we did a sturgeon fishing this year as well. Well, WD-40 has almost the identical molecular composition as herring oil. So when those fish are processing those molecules through their brain, they think it's herring oil. So just a little tidbit there why WD-40 may work as a fish attractant. I believe more in the sense they're designed for fish, and Berkeley makes some of the best ones that I've ever used.
Yeah.
They kind of shut off the bait on us, and you could watch them actually come up and bump the bait, but they wouldn't take it. And I don't know, they were just really shut off. Oh heck, this isn't the brown after all.
Yeah, it is.
Is it?
Sure it is.
Oh, I thought it was a whitefish. No, it's a little brown. So I pulled out the old fly rod. There was a pretty good chironomid hatch this morning, and they're really feeding on those, but as the sun came up, I noticed there was a lot of mayflies starting to hatch. And so I just put on a very, very small mayfly imitation. I got a 9-foot leader here with a 2-pound test, tippet. And sometimes that's what it takes. This is really typical of browns. They'll feed really heavily in the morning and evening, but get really, really tough in the afternoon. And that's what it is right now. It's really hot out here too. I can't believe it for September.
Just barely had him hooked.
Little number 18 dry fly there. It's just tiny, tiny. Oh. Get him back in the water.
They're slippery.
Yeah, they are. look much like a trout, Russ.
No, I just changed over to just a little wire worm. Just threw a wire worm on the end of the line. Seen some whitefish cruising here.
Now, these are different from most of the whitefish that you're probably familiar with. These are Rocky Mountain whitefish, and they're only found near the Rocky Mountains, both in Alberta and British Columbia. And in the fall, they make some mass migrations up these rivers. Oh, he's active. There we go.
There we go.
And they're a great alternate species for people to catch. And you'll see, I know, right in downtown Calgary and downtown Cochrane where I live, there's just people lying in the banks fishing for them. And Russ is just using a little wire worm. And I know people use little maggots and flies with maggots and things like that. And about August until October is when they really get going. There we go. That's pretty average size. Oh, they are slippery too. That's a pretty average size Rocky Mountain whitefish right there. Oh, just one more of the species you can catch in the boat. I'm going to get him back in there before he pulls me in. There he goes. Nice thing about the whitefish, if you're fishing for rainbows or browns or trout like that, which is pretty much of an evening and morning type bite, the whitefish go all day, and I think a lot of times they actually go better in the warm afternoons. Today on Pro Tips, we've got a special treat for you. We're in my hometown, Cochrane, Alberta, and it's in the middle of some of the best trout fishing in the world. We're in front of Smallman's Fly Shop, and owner Peter Smallman is one of the best fly fishermen there is. He's going to talk to us about selecting a proper reel, rod, and line. Come on upstairs and let's go talk to him.
Hello, TJ.
Hi, Peter. How are you doing today?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Good to see you. I thought I'd catch you out fishing on a day like this.
No, I have to work in the fly shop.
This is a beautiful shop you got here.
Thank you.
Yes, I imagine you're pretty busy these days.
Yep, it has been. It's been a good fishing year, and a lot of people out fishing. They need flies and leaders and things, so they come to us for their stuff.
Well, it's a beautiful place. Hey, we've been getting a lot of letters in from our viewers asking about getting started in fly fishing. They want to know what kind of rods, reels, and line to start with. And I couldn't think of a better guy to ask but you.
Well, thank you very much. Basic rod we'd like to promote is a 9-foot 6-weight rod. This particular model is made by St. Croix, and it's all graphite, which is light and quick, and just ideal for fly fishing. The 6-weight pertains to the weight of the line, and the first 30 feet of the 6-weight line weighs 160 grains, which is sufficient to cast the streamers and nymphs and dry flies. The lighter line weights are used for dry fly fishing for small flies, and the bigger weights, like a 7-weight and an 8-weight, are used for large flies. The fly line that we would use on this outfit is a 6-weight line. 6-weight line, the first 30 feet, weighs 160 grains, which is designed to load the rod and to make the cast. This particular line is a floating line. It's designed to float on top of the water, and we use that for fishing dry flies, and we also use the floating line for nymphing. Weight forward means that the weight is near the front of the fly line, so when we're casting, that this will load the rod and then cast out a thinner running line and make very long casts. The fly line will be attached to backing. We put 20-pound test backing, and the backing is wound on the reel right in tight, so that if we catch a large fish and he runs and he takes all the fly line off, that the backing will give you a bit more line to play with. Also, the backing will fill up the bottom part of the reel, so the fly line is not wound in very tight down around the spool. The reel that we would use on our outfit would be a reel such as this, which is a Fluger reel, and it's a nice solid reel. It's a single action reel. As you can see, it's just direct contact with the fish. When the fish runs, he just winds this off. Has a drag here that when you tighten the drag, you can put a bit of drag on the fish. But when the fish runs on you and he pulls, basically you've got to take your hand off. Wrap your knuckles and you might lose the fish. Single action, one turn of this is one turn of the reel. The reel is not that important in a beginner's outfit. but it's nice to have a reel that will balance the rod, be about the right size and the right weight, so that the rod won't be too heavy on the tip or too heavy on the butt. We like to see a balanced outfit. That would be your basic outfit with your rod, your reel, and your line, and an outfit such as this would sell for about $165.
I think flexibility is the name of the game when you're fishing, and we were catching a lot of browns this morning below the CV Dam, but as the sun got higher, they shut off, which is usually the case with browns. So what we've done is we moved upstream to the town of Canmore, and there's an old railway bridge here, and it's a really popular spot right in town. And people catch a lot of whitefish here, and these are the Rocky Mountain whitefish like Russ caught earlier. And so we're going to come up here, fish for these a while, have some fun, and once the sun goes down a little bit, then maybe we'll head back to CV Dam.
The young fellow across the way over here, he's getting quite a few of them. He's got a big back eddy he's working. It seems like he's catching quite a few. He's caught 3 or 4 since we've been here in 5-6 minutes.
All we're doing here is you kind of cast a little bit upstream, and you don't really want to reel in. You just want to keep taking the slack out of your line and just keep contact with it, and you want to feel that weight bouncing along the bottom. And there's no doubt when you get a bite, it's really a rapid set of taps. And you just kind of want to let it quarter out downstream, and then cast back up, just reel in the slack, let it go down, and just keep doing that. Once it gets too far downstream, it'll start to rise up off the bottom, so there's no sense leaving it there. What we're using, we just got a little bit of coat hanger for a dropper, and then we've got about a 6-inch lead with this little pink fly that's got a little bit of peacock curl and a maggot. And when they hit, it's just it's really rapid, and you can really feel it. And they're a lot of fun to catch, I think. And rather than just sitting there not catching anything, we're flexible enough to come up here and catch some of these. As long as I'm catching fish, I'm having fun, aren't you, Russ?
You don't know what he's doing yet.
He fought pretty hard. We're using pretty light tackle so we can enjoy the fight of these things too. So sometimes it takes me a few minutes. He'll do fine though. Well, we kind of spent a little too long at Canmore. The fish were really biting there, but we wanted to stop back at CV Dam here and see if we can catch some more fish. You see it's getting pretty late. Looks like you got another one there, Russ.
Yeah, another whitefish.
Oh, is it? That's a nice one. It's kind of nice to get away for a day of fishing like this. We're heading off to a pretty big tournament here next week. We're going up to Tobin Lake in Saskatchewan and fishing for $50,000 there. I think there's going to be a little more pressure than this. But we sure had a lot of fun out here today anyways, and make sure you join us next time on Gone Fishing.